I've become more powerful than any Jedi. Even you.
Much to learn, you still have.
Stellaris 4.0 and Stellaris Biogenesis have just released. Today we're going to look at the updated economic system for the game and try and work out exactly how planetary management works so you can dive in. I do need to say a special thank you to Paradox for sponsoring this video. If you'd like to purchase Stellaris Season 9 or purchase Biogenesis, you can do so by using our link to the Paradox Interactive Store and also supporting this channel. I think about 12.5% of your purchase goes towards supporting this channel if you use our link, or at the checkout use the code MONTUPLAYS. Without any further ado though, let's dive in. So you've started a new game of Stellaris 4.0 and you might be terribly lost. Don't worry, we're going to go through everything you need to know in order to manage your planets properly. We'll start with the generic default race, the United Nations of Earth. This is a very normal empire that has pretty normal bonuses. Now, step one in managing your planets is to open them. You can either do that through the outliner or go to a planet and click on it. And then we come to the new planetary management screen. I'm going to start by explaining what every icon means, so if you already know what all of these icons mean, you might want to skip ahead to the next chapter. The important bar here is this bar in the top half of the planet management screen. On the far left, we have stability. Any value above 50 and you're going to get a bonus to your production. Any value below 50 and you're going to get a reduction to your production. If your stability gets too low, if you have slaves, that's 40%. Otherwise, if you get down to 25%, you could be facing a planetary revolt. Next, we have the current population. With the 4.0 rework, there are many more pops on every planet. Our starting population is 5,200 because we have the prosperous unification start. Normal empires do start with less pops on the capital. Crime is a number you can mostly ignore as long as it stays below 30%. At 30% and above, you will start getting some negative events happening to your planet that could either further reduce crime or just cause nasty things to happen. Housing represents how much space there is for your people to live on the planet. As we haven't unpaused the game yet, we don't have any inclusion for the actual people living on this planet already. By unpausing and allowing the game to tick over by a day or so, this number has now updated alongside the stability number, and it shows us our net housing. That is, all of our available housing from different districts and buildings minus our housing usage. This number should be positive. If it ever gets negative, it will start negatively impacting your stability, which will reduce the output on the planet. On top of that, it's also essential for population growth, which we'll get into a little bit later. Amenities represent the daily needs of your population, and you need amenities to keep your population happy. As long as your amenities are positive, you'll get an increase to the happiness of the population living on the planet, which will in turn affect the approval rating and thus boost stability. If amenities go negative, you'll get a reduction to your happiness, which will then reduce stability. Hovering over available jobs, we can find out which jobs are currently being worked on our planet and how many of them are empty. Generally speaking, you do want this number to be 0. There's no point having open jobs that nobody can work, outside of a few specific circumstances. Unemployment is usually a number we can ignore in patch 4.0. This represents how many pops lack a job. But there's a new special type of job that unemployed pops will filter into, and that job does produce some resources. At present, you will always, as your population grows, have a small amount of unemployment as new pops that are in different strata filter back down to that job right at the bottom called civilian. You basically don't need to worry about it though. A planet is made up of districts and buildings. Apart from the special planets that we'll look at a bit later, you have 3 basic types of district available. The generator district, which will provide jobs that give you energy credits, the mining district, which will provide jobs that give you minerals, and the agriculture district, which will provide jobs that give you food. Then you get the city districts. City districts still provide you housing. However, depending on the district specializations you choose, you will get additional jobs. Let's dive into how this works. So a basic city district with no specializations will grant you 1,000 housing and absolutely no jobs. With further technology, you can increase this number. However, we start with some specializations, an archive, and a mixed industry. These will impact how each of your city districts behave. The archive reduces the total housing given by the city district by 200, taking it down from 1,000 to 800, and also gives us 20 physicist, biologist, and engineer jobs, those are research producing jobs, and 40 bureaucrat jobs. Basically, this specialization overall gives us 100 jobs in various sectors. But those jobs aren't just a one-shot. For every single district we have, and at present we have 3 districts, we're getting these jobs, meaning we have a total of 60 physicists, biologists, and engineers, and 120 bureaucrats from our city districts. The mixed industry is granting us 50 metallurgists and 50 artisans. They're producing consumer goods and alloys, as the tooltip says. From our 3 city districts, we have 150 of each on the planet. If you want to change one of the specializations, all you need to do is select it and then click the replace icon. You'll then be given a pop-up asking if you're really sure you want to do this, as some of the buildings may be incompatible and destroyed, and then you can see the full number of available choices. Let's quickly go through what each of these does now. So the urban expansion simply provides you 200 additional housing per district. Heavy industry is similar to the mixed industry but only grants metallurgists, and civilian is the same but with only artisans. We already have an archive, so I won't cover that one again. The research enclave only gives you 90 jobs, but every job here is a research type job, so if you're looking to make a research world, you want to place one of these down. You can double up as well with your specializations, so we could decide to have 2 research enclaves as specializations here instead of the archive and the mixed industry. The physics, society, and engineering specialization only grant you research jobs in that specific research category. The administration hub is going to give you bureaucrats for more unity. The planetary defenses will give you soldiers, giving you naval capacity, stability, and more defensive armies. This is good if your planet is on a choke point. The commercial nexus will give you traders, which turn consumer goods into trade. Trade is now essential, as in order to buy or sell anything from the market, you'll be using trade value, not energy credits anymore. The last 3 districts are generator, mining, and farming support. If this world is dedicated to basic resource production, it can be very useful to add some of these in. Per district, you're going to get 50 trader jobs, which is half as much as the commercial nexus, but quite a nice boost of plus 20% to whichever basic resource type you choose. Once we've chosen a specialization, or simply colonize the planet, we unlock a number of building slots. Specializations grant 3 building slots, and the planetary administration outside of the capital grants a further 5 slots. In these locations, we can place buildings that will either have an effect on the entire colony. For example, the Autochthon monument here is granting us 5% additional unity from jobs and 0.5 unity per 100 civilians on the planet. Alternatively, we can place down buildings that simply provide a few more additional jobs, like the civilian industries. We've got one of these, and it's granting us an additional 200 artisan jobs. These slots are limited though, so you will have to choose exactly what you want, whether you want bonuses like the Chthon Monument or simply more jobs. Generally speaking, it is more cost effective to place a building for additional jobs. Placing the city district can be more expensive, but this also provides additional housing. And housing is very, very important for growing our population. In order to specialize our generator, mining, or agriculture districts, we do need some special technologies which will unlock as we play the game. I'm going to come back to these a little later when we look at how our colony has developed over time. There's a few more pieces on the surface screen I want to discuss. First off, planet size and planetary capacity. Planet capacity is affected by available housing and empty districts. A planet has a certain size, in this case 18, meaning it can support a total of 18 districts, amongst the city, generator, mining, and agriculture districts. At the moment, we have 12 districts used, and therefore there are 6 districts remaining. 3 of these districts currently are blocked from usage. We can clear those by paying a cost. Possibly we may need to unlock some special technology to get rid of these blockers. But until we do that, they are unusable, inaccessible, and will not contribute towards planetary capacity. Just to the right of our planet size, we can see the designation. By clicking on this, we can change between auto-designate, which honestly doesn't work that often, and choosing which designation we would like for the planet. Different designations provide you different effects which will change the efficiency of the planet. Generally speaking, it is still a good idea to specialize your planets towards producing 1 or possibly 2 specific types of resources, and then choosing a designation that goes along with that. However, for your capital, Empire designation is absolutely fine, don't feel the need to change it. Next to designation, we have the automation settings. Automation is currently a little bit balked, and I do have some other videos on how this all works, so I won't cover it right now. Finally, on the far right, we have the build queue. You can queue up different districts, different buildings, and then if you want to, change the order in which they are built. Shift clicking will move an item to the top, and left clicking on it will remove it from the build queue entirely. Whilst a district is being constructed, the empty district will no longer add towards planetary capacity. This is important to remember, because if you queue up all your districts in one go, you'll be severely damaging your planet capacity, which will have a massive impact on your population growth. So it is actually optimal to queue only one district at a time. At the top right of this screen, we have any bonuses or modifiers affecting the colony. In this case, we're getting prosperous unification, granting us more happiness, more amenities, more resources from jobs, and the notification that this will only last for 20 years. On the far left, we can see the planetary governor. The governor has an impact not just on the planet it controls, but also the entire sector if this planet is the sector capital. There are 3 different types of leaders, each providing different bonuses. And if you're enjoying this video, please manage that like button in minute detail. Let's take a look now at the second tab, the management tab. This tab will tell you all about your population, give you access to knowing what the planetary features are and the blockers I talked about earlier. You can also do some sector editing and colony ascension from this place, and do your decisions alongside terraforming. Let's first talk about population growth. Because pops have been massively changed, population growth has also been changed as well. To find out the individual growth of any one particular segment of population units on a planet, you need to hover over the number on the right. This will tell you the population change from last month and the estimated growth next month. The total growth for population on a planet is based on the total population numbers, which in this case is 5,203, and also the planetary capacity. At the very top, we can see the monthly pop growth for the colony last month for everything as a whole, alongside the estimated growth for each species. In this case, humans are estimated to grow by an additional 2.76 pops. Base growth is now 1 population per month. However, that is then modified by logistic growth. In very young colonies with small populations, or in very large colonies where the population is almost at the same level as capacity, you're not going to get very much population growth. This growth is then split equally between each population grouping based on its relative weighting and size in the overall population. Any estimated growth under 1 means that there will be a chance, in this case a 0.1 chance, which is a 10% chance, that a new human elite pop will spawn at the end of the month. On the other hand, the human workers have a 95% chance of getting a new pop. Here we've colonized our very first planet, Sirius 3. New colonies start with only 100 population. This means that they actually have very, very low growth. Here we're getting a modifier of minus 0.75, and on top of that, due to habitability, a further minus 10% applied to everything for population growth. That means our estimated growth next month is only 0.19. So there is a 19% chance we'll get a new population. As we get more population, the growth rate from logistic growth will go up. However, at this rate, it would take around 40 years to get to 200 population, which is the equivalent of getting +1 pops under the old pre-4.0 system. To offset this, we're going to end up with some migration from our core world out to Sirius. New colonies heavily rely on migration in order to get up and running. There are two ways of boosting your population growth, either increasing planetary capacity by adding excess housing by building more city districts, or clearing blockers that give us more available districts and thus increasing our planetary capacity. The other way is simply by having a higher population. Until we get up to around 1500 or 2000 population, the growth on this planet is going to be so minimal we can basically ignore it. We'll actually get maximum population growth, which is capped out at your logistics ceiling, the base setting for that is 5, when we are around half the population compared to our planetary capacity. Do be careful your housing usage doesn't go too negative, because if it gets too negative, you'll start dealing with population decline, regardless of your planetary capacity to actually support this population. Clearing blockers usually costs energy and sometimes requires a technology. You'll also often get access to planetary features, giving you more available districts of mining, energy, or food. And on special planets, you'll even get some special bonuses too. If a planet is uninhabited or you have the correct technology, you can also terraform it to match the habitability of your population. In this case, we prefer continental worlds, so there's actually no need to terraform Sirius. Decisions like distributing luxury goods or spending minor artifacts to increase bureaucrat output will have an effect on your colony, but usually stop after about 10 years. Certain ascension perks and certain abilities give you access to more decisions. Let's jump back to Earth and now take a look at the Economy tab. This tab allows you to change up which jobs are being worked on your planet. Your population is split into different strata. At the very top you have the elites. They often do jobs like politicians or science directors or nobles. Then you have the specialists. These usually create your advanced resources like research, unity, alloys, and consumer goods. Below that you have your workers. They usually output your basic goods, which are energy, food, and minerals. At the very bottom we have civilians. These are basically the old clerks from pre-4.0. Anything that is unemployed for long enough will filter down and become a civilian. Civilians produce a small number of amenities and also some trade. However, they are the worst job in the game. You'll probably want to create proper jobs for these civilians to access. So even though our available job says 0, it is a good idea here to build more districts and buildings to provide jobs for these 1,900 civilians. Alternatively, as long as you have resettlement turned on, you can resettle some of these civilians to a new colony where they are going to take up a job if they have a job available. It'll cost you around 100 energy credits before any changes to move 100 pops. Moving over around 700 civilians to our new colony has not only increased our population growth on the colony, we're now up to about 1.39 new pops per month. Back on our capital, because we've reduced our population, bringing it closer to half the value of our planetary capacity, our population growth on the capital has increased as well. So moving these civilians off to your early colonies is good for growth both on those colonies and on your capital. We also have granular control over which jobs are worked. By expanding one of the categories, we then have these sliders. We can use the plus or minus or simply drag to reduce the number of workers by 5% at a time, from the maximum down to 0%. If we remove all of them, the job will no longer be worked, we won't be paying the upkeep, but we also won't be getting the output. We can also click on a specific job type to set that as a priority. This will force population to work that job if at all possible. These granular controls can be very useful after you've done a bit of conquest, or if you're having some economic issues and you need to reduce your upkeeps of things like researcher jobs or bureaucrat jobs in order to keep everything stable. If you've spent a lot of time messing around with jobs and you want it all to go back to normal and have full employment, then you need to click the Restore Job button and everything goes back to being fully employable. The next screen is Army. This basically hasn't changed from pre-4.0. You can deploy your armies in orbit or not, include them in the army builder at star bases, and recruit armies as you like. You can also employ generals to be present on a specific planet. The last tab is holdings. This is only useful for corporate empires and overlords if you have a vassal. You can't place corporate buildings or overlord holdings on your own planet, but if you go and select a vassal's planet, or if you're a corporate empire, someone you have a commercial pact with planet, then you can build corporate buildings and overlord holdings there respectively. We've jumped ahead in time quite a bit now. Let's look at how we can expand our planet as we go into the future. With the right technology, you can specialize your agriculture, mining, and generator districts. Doing this grants you an additional 100 jobs per district, so going from the basic plus 200 to plus 300 jobs per district. We can then also build the specialist building, which not only gives you a percentage modifier increase to your output for that job type, but if you upgrade it, you'll also get a base output that is further modified by bonuses as well, making these jobs much more efficient. The other building slots here can include things like an industrial mining site, which grants you an additional +2 available maximum mining districts. However, that still must obey planet size, meaning you can't go over your planet size even with one of these mining sites. You can also put storage capacity on these planets, though I'd recommend you probably use star bases for that. The last building you can build here in the specialized basic resource districts are buildings that grant you additional jobs, like the surface quarry depot. That's going to give us plus 200 miner jobs. If we have available civilians for that job, which we currently actually don't, then those civilians will move up to work this job, granting us more mineral income in this particular case. Jumping over to look at the capital, I've added a clone vat, which is giving us some base monthly organic pop growth, which is in addition to our regular growth, and a robot assembly complex, which is building new robots for us every month. Overall, this has brought our population growth in total on the capital to about 8.5 new pops every month, which means in about a year we'll get another 100 pops ready to work 100 new jobs. In my city district, I've used the building slots to place specialized buildings that are going to boost the output of specific jobs that I'm getting. For example, the auto-curating vault here is giving me a little bit of research and a bit more unity from each of my bureaucrats, but at quite an increased cost in terms of consumer goods upkeep. There are also buildings that increase efficiency, and as mentioned before, buildings that just give you more jobs. When it comes to getting rare resources like gases, motes, and crystals, you'll now produce them either through mining or alternatively through synthetic production. Synthetic production has been changed drastically. You're now going to get, if you build an exotic gas refinery, +1 gases for every 100 metallurgists or artisans on the planet, and a small increase to the mineral upkeep of those metallurgists and artisans. This basically means if you have a world dedicated to building alloys, consumer goods, or both, you should probably put down the rare resource synthetic buildings to get access to the exotic resources. Our capital doesn't really have much in the way of a planetary deficit. We're producing most things we need locally, except not enough consumer goods. Sirius as well generally produces most of what we need, however it doesn't produce quite enough energy or food. But we do have a planet that has vast problems in terms of local deficits. Alpha Centauri 3 is an Ecumenopolis. This is a research Ecumenopolis making almost 2,000 research every single month. But this comes at quite a high cost in terms of energy, rare resources, and consumer goods. Having planetary deficits will now cost you trade on an empire-wide level. Here we can see we are consuming 225 trade every single month thanks to the very high planetary deficits on this planet. That's not necessarily a problem, we'll just need to make some trade on another world to offset this deficit. Specializing this world into research production does mean we're producing a phenomenal amount of research with only 7,700 population. Part of the bonuses here are for optimization. There's a new building type in the game called an optimization building. This provides you with automated workforce for all of your districts in a specific zone. For example, the residential arcologies here, which have 10 of a maximum of 13 zones, only need 50% workforce to be fully run. Moving over to the economy tab, we're getting 50% of our workforce added at the cost of 300 energy credits every single month. This cost is based on the number of buildings and districts you have in this district. So for example, if I demolish a Hollow Theatre here, you'll see the price going down by 10 energy credits. Ecumenopolis worlds are now very similar to Hive worlds and machine worlds. Each operates on a basic principle. You have your residential sector in the center, which can have 2 specializations. Then you have 3 districts which can be specialized. In fact, Ecumenopolis worlds are now slightly less useful or versatile compared to Hive and machine worlds because they only get access to generator, mining, and farming support. They cannot actually build generator, mining, or farming districts. We then have 3 different arcologies that can each be specialized. We can choose to have the same specializations as the capital residential arcology. Honestly, at the moment though, I'd recommend you put down just a single district here, giving you access to the building slots. You can't specialize an arcology until you've got down at least 1 district. The reason for this is the capital arcologies, the residential ones, have access to 2 specializations, giving you double the number of jobs per district you place. And let's not forget, each of these districts provides 3 times the jobs of a regular district. For example, the heavy industry district here is granting us 300 metallurgist jobs per district, rather than just 100, which is what we'd get on any other normal planet. I think it's also worth mentioning the luxury residences. At the moment, they're a little overtuned, and 1 luxury residence grants you more amenities than all of the entertainers you'll get from a Hollow Theatre. They also don't require any jobs, so right now it's definitely in your best interest if you're having an amenity issue to build more luxury residences. Jumping over to look at Gestalt consciousness empires, they don't get civilians, instead they get access to maintenance drones. Maintenance drones are going to be your primary source of amenities. 100 maintenance drones provides you with quite a lot of amenities. And the drone storage building is more correct than the luxury residence. This only provides 300 amenities. Outside of maintenance drones and drone storage, the only other place you'll get amenities is your logistic drones. They also produce trade. I know it seems weird if you're a Gestalt consciousness, but don't forget you still need trade to buy and sell things on the market, as well as covering planetary deficits and fleet upkeeps. If you're going to play as a hive mind or a machine intelligence empire, it is essential you don't eliminate all of your maintenance drones, because then you'll be suffering from an amenities deficit, which will also reduce your stability. If you have too many jobs and not enough maintenance drones, the simplest way to deal with this is to deprioritize some jobs to push more pops into unemployment, who will then jump down and take on the maintenance role over time, granting you more amenities yet again. If you've got any further questions on planetary management, please ask down in the comments below. I, and hopefully other people in the community, will try to answer your questions and help you out. Don't forget, if you'd like to purchase Stellaris Season 9 or purchase Biogenesis, or in fact anything from Paradox Interactive, you can do so using our link or going directly to the Paradox store to buy your Steam keys, and using our code MONTUPLAYS to also support this channel. If you enjoyed this video covering planetary management in Stellaris 4.0 and you'd like to watch another Stellaris video, click the video on screen now.